Happy New Year and welcome to 2024. If I could take the audacity to actually do that. My assumption is everybody who is watching this particular video has made it into 2024. Congratulations. Thank God that we are here for another year. 2023 was an interesting year for many of us. For those of us in politics, 2023, we call it the year of healing. We were healing, we were learning, we were getting over ourselves, especially for those of us whose elections didn't go well. I think for those people whose elections went well, it was a year of learning. Realizing that now you are in office and you're expected to deliver to the people of Kenya. It was also the year when we had a closing of ranks of politicians from different places, as well as small cracks, especially within the opposition. And that is a conversation we're going to have as we go into this year. But I want to speak specifically on two issues as we begin 2024. This is the first week of 2024. These are my thoughts. I want us to think about two specific things. When you have a rose garden, do you call it a rose garden or do you call it a thorns garden? Do you say your roses have thorns or do you say your thorns have roses? As we get into 2024, when we talk about the whole idea of looking at the glass as half full as compared to half empty, that is what we're talking about. If you look at a rose flower, for example, you realize that every stem actually has more thorns than roses. But nobody ever tells you that I'm giving you a stem of thorns. They give you a stem of roses because that one rose pays off for the thorns on that stem. As we analyze how we're living and the politics that we're doing as a country called Kenya, I'd like to challenge us to use that concept because this is a continuation of the concept, as I said, glass half full, glass half empty. Entirely up to you to decide whether your garden is a garden of roses or a garden of thorns. Whether you have thorns that have roses or roses that have thorns. This is my challenge to you this year. Every time you come across something, are you looking for the things that are not working? Or are you looking for the few things that are working? And in every circumstance, you tend to have fewer things working than the things that are not working. But the few things that work, that one rose pays off all the thorns on that stem. I also want us to think about something else. This is a bit more academic. In my philosophy class, we were told about a guy called Thomas Hobbes. Thomas Hobbes was a pessimist. He didn't have a lot of faith in human beings. And he said that if human beings are left to their own devices, they would do something called, they would have a very short life that would be nasty, poor, brutish, and extremely difficult. And when he was challenged once during a lecture, he said, why do you lock your doors? When you leave your house, why do you lock your door? Nobody tells you to lock your door. But you lock your door because you know there are people out there who would come into your house and take your things. Right? So in normal circumstances, you'll find that most people do good because it is expensive or it is painful to do bad. If they did not have that limitation, most people would do bad. There was a movie that was shown some time back where they had this concept that the law had fallen apart. And for one day in the year, people were allowed to do whatever they want. And that movie started with people killing each other, people killing children, people robbing people, people breaking into banks. And that is the position of what happens when you actually don't have a structure. So Thomas Hobbes talked about that short, nasty, brutal, poor life that human beings would have if they're left to their own devices. And the solution he gave is something called government. Government is where all these people who left to themselves to do bad things to each other come together. And because they've come together and they want to manage each other, they form a committee to manage the affairs of all of them. And that committee is called government. And the most effective committee is the one that is run democratically. That is what we do as a country. We have a democratic form of government, we have a democratic committee, which determines how we as tenants relate to each other and live together. Every time I see people pointing fingers at government and saying how government is misbehaving, it reminds me of a statement. I can't remember who said that for every loan we borrow as a country, it's an advance tax. We're going to pay for it at some point. Every tax we pay is meant to go into this committee to help us manage our affairs, secure us. If we were not of that negative nature, we wouldn't have to get as much money. If we were not out there trying to rob each other, we wouldn't need as many policemen, or as big an army, or as many hospitals if we were living within healthy environment. So the things and the burdens we put on the government are actually us. And government is us. William Ruto was a Raia and will be a Raia once his term is done. Uhuru Kenyatta was a Raia, became president, and I was a Raia. Everybody, whether you're a member of parliament or a CS, you are a Raia before, you will end as a Raia. Government is a transitional committee that people get in and get out to keep our country moving forward. As we get into 2024, this is my challenge to everybody who's listening to me today. Every single day of this year, let's do two things. Let's watch out for each other. Let us ensure this government succeeds. There's a reason why this country doesn't have a structure called opposition. I don't know whether you know that. Even in parliament, we don't have an opposition. We have a minority side and a majority side. The two sides make a whole, and that whole is the nation of Kenya. When we keep pushing the narrative that you have to be an opposition, it means that you are expected to oppose what the other side is doing. So anytime they come up with something, you have to oppose it. When you're a majority side and a minority side, you bring in a minority view to anything that the majority people bring, and you bring in a majority view to anything the minority people bring. It is a positive way of moving our country forward by bringing two opinions, two perspectives to everything that are not necessarily opposing each other. Happy New Year! From Rware, we wish you all the best. We wish you God's blessing. Walk with God through 2024.